Six-figure earners. What do you do to get that? Story 1, I'm basically a middleman that doesn't need to exist. The Navy emails me, hey, our flight computer failed, we need another one. Then I email Boeing or Rockwell Collins or whoever, hey, this flight computer failed, we need another one. Then I email a third company, hey, there's a flight computer on the way. I need it delivered to base ASAP. Then I email the Navy, hey, the flight computer is on the way. I'm a senior logistics analyst. Story 2, airline pilot. I work 12, 15 days a month, sometimes significantly less, and bring in $200K/YR. Company also provides a 16% direct contribution to my 401k. If I chose to hustle a bit, I could pretty easily do close to $300K. The captains at the top of the pay scale are pulling in close to $500K/year without trying all too hard. Story 3. Took a degrees in engineering, finance, and business administration. Got white-collar job. Worked my ass off. Hopped jobs, employers a few times, always moving up and learning. Currently CTO in a company of 1,200 people. I'm 40. 2 ears, 1 mouth is good advice. When you're in the room, listen more than you speak. Understand the individual motivations of the people around you. Cater to them. Never leave A on your boss's desk. And if you can't avoid it, make sure to tell him why, what you intend to do about it, when the problem is solved, and why it won't happen again. Story 4. I got out of prison in 2011. Jumped on a drilling rig, got hurt, shoulder issue, then ended up as what we call a third-party grease hand in the oil field. Worked 120 hours per week for a few years with no days off schedule but made $180-200K/wire back then. Got burned out and just flat out quit. Made a decent name for myself as a good hand and got offered a plug hand job running frac plugs. That was a pretty good gig, making around $200K working 12-hour shifts and a 14-on-7 off schedule. Got laid off, moved around a bit, ended up getting a sales offer for an oil field supply company at the beginning of 2021. Now I'm outside sales manager with a $130K salary, a nice company truck, and I'm home every evening by 5. I've worked my ass off everywhere I've gone. Made some great contacts to help me get to where I'm at. I can probably go back to the field for a lot more money, but I'm able to take my kids to school in the morning and tuck them in every night. The oil field in West Texas is different than anywhere else, though. I have no formal education and 3 felonies. With a lot of hard work and a little luck, anyone can make over $100K out here. Story 5. Started my career in a call center making $15 per hour. This year, I'll clear over $200K leading teams in a corporate environment. My rules are, don't be an asshole. You can be disruptive and innovative without being a. What you do matters, but how you go about it matters just as much in the long run. Everyone knows and remembers who the assholes are. Don't touch people without permission. Take care of the people in your charge and those around you. Help out your peers. Help your employees grow. Help make your boss's life easier. Story 6. Veterinarian. I make about $150K a year, which is far less than my human medicine counterparts. As a general practitioner, I do family medicine, emergency medicine, radiology, dentistry, soft tissue surgery, oncology, and end-of-life care, all for multiple different species and patients who can't tell me anything. And at least once a day, someone tells me I'm ripping them off and just in it for the money. Story 7. I'm not at 6 figures yet, a few thousand short maybe. I will probably clear it next year. My advice is find something you like with a lot of upward mobility. Be prepared to give a lot of yourself to the job. Put in the extra work, take the extra hours. But most importantly, never stay anywhere more than 3-5 years until you find a place that cares about you. Those are incredibly rare these days. Story 8. Took a 4-month coding bootcamp course between 2018 to 2019, focusing on JavaScript and web development. Got a job as a paid software dev intern making $25/hour that turned into a full-time job making $75K/year. I switched jobs twice, making more money at each. I now work as a software developer remotely, and I've been with the same company for about 2 years now, making $125K/year plus bonuses. I have no college degree. Story 9. Here is how I did it. Stuck it out in the same industry for 27 years. I got the good enough diploma and went straight to work. Educate yourself in tools that are potentially viable for your line of work. When a person says they are proficient at Microsoft Office programs, they should be able to at least generate a spreadsheet with formulas and all. I can remember the 2 times I missed work in that entire span. Yes, I have missed other days which I do not count because I worked these out in advance by solving the problem by either getting work done prior to missing days or putting another person in the position to complete my work without supervisors having to worry about coverage. Be a yes man and or an idea man. Be accepting of and champion change. Story 10. Salesforce architect. 10 years just crossed $200K. Luck. Can't ignore some right place, right time scenarios. Hard work, that helps to some degree the luck scenario, but I also taught myself skills I didn't major in and pivoted in a large way. Vertical movement. I had coworkers who did not want to move to higher roles. They enjoyed being developers. But I liked the idea of bigger perspectives and partnering with the business. Changing jobs? If the company I worked for didn't support my career growth aspirations, either it didn't align with the business, which is fine, I get it, or if they were just lazy, I changed jobs. This syncs up with my next theme, taking chances. Take chances. As a rule of thumb, I always talk to recruiters and network and occasionally interview. If anything, to keep my thumb on the pulse of the market, check my market value. Am I being compensated appropriately? Etc. If an opportunity comes up, I take a risk. I have been in comfy roles that lost vertical movement, but I was making $150K and working 25 HRs a week. But I got a new gig doing 40 HRs minimum, but a $70K raise. Story 11, Epic Application Analyst, kind of niche healthcare IT work. Specifically, I build scheduling, referrals, MyCart, patient portal. Not coding at all, but requires a company to sponsor your certifications. Started as a patient access rep, became an Epic credentialed trainer, and now an analyst. Just hit $100K/year after 3 years as an analyst, 25 years old. Story 12, Game Writer. I essentially write screenplays, do world-building characters, and advise artists how to create environmental storytelling moments, in addition to characters and assets. For cinematics, I have driven the creative vision and advised on the art style to fit budget and create compelling pieces. During recording season, I go through audition tapes and pick actors, then work with them in the recording session by offering suggestions on performance and doing flash rewrites if they can't pronounce a written line, or if it sounds clumsy. Story 13, short answer, work in tech. Long answer, got degrees in math and CS, learned both coding and management. Now run the engineering department of a mid-sized software company. A lot of stress, but making 6 figures where the first figure isn't a 1. And working remote is pretty sweet. Story 14, get into sales. Don't listen to the hate on it. Just don't be like this salespeople. Listen to your accounts. I've learned more about every other segment of my company being in sales than I bet any other person in another segment has learned. I have to deal with finance, engineering, service, warranty, Arkansas, etc. Plus, when you get good and have a good product or service, money will start to come. It's not easy. You'll get rejected a lot and blamed a lot for things out of your control, but is what it is. Treat your external and internal customers right, and you'll have success. Story 15. IT admin making in the lower range of 6 figures with only a technical degree and 16+ years experience with multiple certifications. I work all the time. You can't bring the business down for patches, so it has to be done at night. How will the changes you made in the previous night affect the users? Well, now I have to be at work early to be sure nothing goes wrong from the previous night's changes. It's a vicious cycle. We are talking drive home, get some food together, and make sure kids start homework. Then log into the network from home at around 6:30 p.m. Work until 9:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. Go to bed and wake up at 5 a.m. to start the day again. Be at the office for 7:30 a.m. 5 p.m. drive home. Rinse, repeat. Story 16. Use tech skills while working in a non-tech industry. Then pivoted to tech and retained my operational approach to development. A lot of people who learn to code go looking for jobs with big software companies. Essentially a big fish pond full of fish exactly like you. You'll need to be a superstar to stand out. You're much better off finding a job in a traditionally non-technical industry where your, let's be honest, mediocre skills will make you look like a wizard. The real cheat code here is to actually work a non-tech job for a bit and learn a bit about that industry. You can do an entry-level call center job filing insurance claims or loading delivery trucks in a warehouse for 6 months and be an absolute rock star when it comes to developing software to support insurance logistics. Most devies struggle to conceptualize how their choices impact their boots-on-the-ground customers. So, if you've lived it and can apply that experience in your designs, you're worth your weight in gold. Story 17, senior designer close to making art director. Taught myself the programs over the course of a year. Started at $30 PH and kept moving companies. Within 3/4 years, went from $65K to $112. Once I make AD, hopefully $25 $150K plus bonus. Basically, keep moving and asking for more money. Story 18. I'm a technical writer and I document software. I got my foot in the door as a career-changing intern after applying for jobs for about 4 years. 5 years later, I'm a senior-level writer. I probably would make a bit less than I do based on my experience, but I switched companies at the height of the hiring boom a couple years ago and easily negotiated a really nice salary there. I'm terrified of the thought of entering the job market again, though. I love my career, but it's definitely not a safe place to be right now. And sometimes I feel like I'm wearing golden handcuffs on a slowly sinking ship. Veterinary specialist. Took a long time. Undergrad, vet school, 2 internships, 3-year residency. Now I work for myself and get paid a lot. Admittedly, I work a ton. Gotta make money back that I didn't in my 20s and pay off those student loans. Next year, my loans will be done, and I can relax a little more. Story 19. I got lucky, but it's also because the manager and team I interviewed with liked my personality. I had almost no relevant skills and a degree that was only tangentially relevant to my new work, biochem degree, now working as an R&D nanotechnology chemist. New job was willing to train me for a solid year before really expecting much from me. Story 20, I drive truck. But for real, I worked a bunch of different jobs before starting to drive commercially. Realized I enjoyed driving a lot, and I got good at it. Now having my commercial license for 2 years, I make just about $100K. I work for a food distributor locally, and it's got a good union and benefits. Tough labor at times, and traffic sucks in NY, but hey, it's an honest, respectable job with respectable pay. Story 21. You need to build your story at every place you're at, and then translate those stories into the next role you want in the interview. Working hard is great. I put up with crap. I did X, Y, and Z, but working hard alone doesn't get you where you want to be. For example, after college, I worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I wanted to get into B2B tech sales. When asked if I had B2B experience, I talked with them about working with dealerships, auto shops, and hotels to send customers our way when their cars broke down. We both knew that wasn't B2B sales, but I was able to talk about how I communicated with business leaders and drove a result of them renting cars from us. Then from there, you keep building your story, and as you get more experience and move up, your stories become better and more relevant to your role. This is how you make the big bucks. After 12 years, I am in a great position with a great company, making a lot of money. Personally, I think people not having good stories, and most importantly, not being able to translate those stories into the role you want is the biggest thing holding people down. You need to look at your experience and try to translate that into what you want to do. You've been a cashier at a retail store. What were your responsibilities? You were great at customer service. Maybe you became a team lead and had to organize schedules, so you have good time management and problem-solving skills. You may have had to redo end caps at the registers, so you were good at marketing. Maybe you won a magazine sales contest, so you are good at sales. People need to be able to take what they feel is just cashiering and look at it as the skills they learned and excelled at other than checking people out. I hope this makes sense and helps. Story 22. Financial analyst. Went back to school in my 30s after getting laid off by a big insurance company I worked for. Got a degree in accounting and decided to push things further and got a master's in finance. Graduated at 40 years old, went from a 40K job to 80K. 3 years later, I'm making 120K, work from home and love my job. I have like 65K in student loans, so that kind of sucks. But I make enough now that I was able to change my life. I left an abusive ex, bought a house last year and a new puppy, dating someone amazing and pursuing my hobbies in my free time. Literally life-changing. Anyone reading this, don't be afraid to change directions at any point in your life. It was scary making huge life changes so late in the game, but it was so worth it. It was scary being the older guy in class, especially that first year where my classes were 3/4 18-year-olds fresh out of high school. It's intimidating, but trust me, it's worth it. Story 23 and 2/1 in the mining industry, Western Australia. It's a hard game. A lot of people see dollar signs but can't handle the job. Long hours, 1 weekdays, then 1 weeknights, then 1 week off. Really, you take 2-3 days to recover, then start getting wound up 2 days before going back, so yeah. The worst aspect is plenty of box-ticking Muppets and DEI hires make manager level. They are horrible to have as bosses. I'm a female road train driver but came from highway driving. Mining is DEI insanity. Story 24. When I was a sourcing manager, I made under $200K, but have friends who make over that. Learn how to read and redline contracts, SIUs, MSAs, work orders, negotiate with vendors, add value to the anticipated goods and services, work with shareholders to understand service and goods requirements internally, be able to talk to execs and summarize needs, and input all that info in the contracts management system. Having understanding of both buy-side and sales-side contracts and industry-specific areas are pluses. Story 25. Working in tech, sales. Background was an English degree, Then built up professional experience in my 20s focusing on transferable skills to migrate into sales. Sales roles weren't as omnipresent then as they are now, with the strong presence of SaaS companies in Dublin, so it was a grind getting in. Be lucky to make any decent commission this year, as it's been a bit of a bloodbath. Not for the faint of heart these days. Story 26. What's sad about this is that 20 years ago as a CS IT person, I was making this much money. CS graduate with tilde 4 or 5 years in the industry when I hit 6 figures. This was, however, in Canada, so that's probably equal to 75-80K USD at the time. Still was good money and allowed me to just barely qualify for a mortgage on a 250K home at the time. This is not a flex, but a comment on how bad wage stagnation and rising house prices have been for 20 years. I really feel for Zennials. Story 27, network engineer, routers, firewalls, switches, Wi-Fi, cloud, etc. Working in NYC for financial companies. The pay is good or even great, but it is stressful. For some customers, if the internet is out for 60 seconds, it's a big deal. And if happens enough, you can lose your job. Very advanced technical skills, and knowledge is ever expanding year after year. Story 28. I did 20 years in the military and worked 2 jobs, so I'll have 3 income streams. I technically have a 4th, as I rent part of my house to my dad, who stays part of the year with us when he's in the country. My wife works as well, and we don't have kids, so our household income is pretty high compared to the area we live in. I'm the primary earner, though, at around $148K take-home pay. I work in supply chain, which is what I did in the military. Story 29, construction management. I barely break into 6 figures, but it's exhausting. My entire life is work. Long days, and when the day is over, I'm prepping for the next day. And when the week is over, I'm often spending weekends prepping for the next week. If I'm not on top of every single detail at all times, things can go south so fast. When I was younger and early into the workforce, I always told myself I just need to get to 100K/year income and I'll be financially free. Well, I got there and now I just feel so behind. 100K 10 years ago was a great wage. In 2024, it really isn't. I don't know how people who make sub 80K as a household survive these days, especially where I live in Toronto. Story 30. I've aggressively pursued promotions. I was promoted in 2021, 2022, and 2024, in which time I've gone from $64K to over $120K. A lot of people promote job hopping, which I think works but eventually becomes harder to do. But I've stayed with one company and just taken different roles. Story 31. Traffic striping. I sat in the back of a paint truck and painted roads, or I used a thermoplastic applicator to mark crosswalks. I'm now a crew chief who oversees the work, but it's a small niche trade that isn't being replaced by robots anytime soon. Eventually, absolutely, but not for a long while. I'm in the PNW, but our guys make anywhere from 110K, 180K, depending on overtime. Union benefits, I get just under 10 weeks off a year. Story 32, I'm just a technician for a fusion company. I make just shy of $150K. I did not go to college or schooling of any kind. I do have 15 plus years working as some sort of mechanical and electrical engineering tech for companies like Boeing, Microsoft, other fusion companies, and SpaceX. I started my working career 24 years ago at a grocery store making $7, 45 hours, and didn't start earning above $30 until 7 years ago. Best advice I can give, get that ADHD or whatever you need medication now, not tomorrow or next week now. Same with therapy. Story 33. I worked at Verizon for 7 years, FT, had them pay for my degree, and left as soon as I graduated. Took forever. Started working at Dell as a TSA in 2020, making maybe 55K3. 4 years later, I'm a senior field solution architect making 150K. Follow your passion is my advice. I love what I do, but it can be very demanding intellectually. Story 34. We started a business. We make and sell products online. It's been way more stressful and time-consuming than I expected. Growth is expensive, and learning how to hire and manage people is an entirely different skill set we have had to learn. But the money has been good, which is nice because therapy is expensive. Story 35, pediatric dentist. 4 years of undergrad maintaining primarily A's and some B's in challenging weed-out science classes. Took the DAT, dental school equivalent of MCAT, and scored in 95th percentile. Interviewed at numerous dental schools. 4 years of dental school maintaining primarily A's and some B's and completing the various dental school requirements. Had to take numerous didactic and clinical board exams. Applied to and interviewed at numerous residency programs. Match into one. Lastly, 2 years of residency with a grueling call schedule and pass boards to be eligible to become board certified. It has been a long road, but I wouldn't change it for any career. Story 36, left hometown. Started a new life where there was more lucrative work for a guy that didn't do so well in high school, had no money for post-secondary, and would have needed too much upgrading to even do what I wanted. My single mom definitely couldn't afford college. She worked 2 jobs and didn't get any child support, and still somehow raised my brother and I. Now make $250K a year. And I thank my mom for being a pristine example of what work ethic should look like and dedication to family. Story 37, MA in economics. But I graduated right after Bear Stearns went under, so the market was flooded with economists who were, frankly, better than me. I could code, though, most because I played in MUDs and liked to help write some. Also learned Python and R while working on grad school. Went into data science, the AI engineering, and now I teach AI engineering in a global fintech. It's not glamorous, though. I work weird hours. I'm sometimes teaching classes for audiences in Bangalore, Singapore, or Germany at like 2 a.m. local time. And on 2 of my 35 to 45 hours of work every week, I've got to spend 10, 15 hours a week on learning so I can keep up. On the side, I do AI-specific QA testing. I usually charge around $250 an hour for that because I would rather not be doing it at all, but everything has a price. Story 38. I was a high school dropout working tie-in jobs until a friend took a chance and helped me get a job working with him using job shop software. Then I went to work for the company that made that software. After a while there, I went to work at a different company that used similar software, learned a lot, got my PMP certification. After a while of that, I went to work where I am now and do similar work, plus more programming, and make just shy over 6 figures. Story 39. I'm an electrical engineer who designs aircraft avionics equipment, things like flight controllers, displays, autopilot, radar, etc. I'm 35 and make just shy of $200K in a medium cost of living city. I work 40 hours a week and rarely work more. Working in a more niche field than consumer electronics has been good because I'm a more difficult employee to replace, and I can command a higher salary. Story 40. Born into middle class to 2 college-educated parents, raised in good, safe neighborhood, good grades in high school, got into a great engineering college, worked hard and studied or did homework many weekends when friends were out partying, worked with the College Career Center to tailor my resume, attended every single job fair there was, and wore a suite as I handed out resumes and learned about the job market. Took every interview I could, even for jobs I did not want, so that I could get practice. Was flown out to CA to interview for a defense company where I got my first job out of college. Worked there for 5 years with minimal raises. Worked hard full-time and went back to school for a master's degree in computer science. Graduated, and after more interviewing got a new job with a 10% raise. Stayed there 5 years, hopped again, got an 18% raise. That finally pushed me into 6 figures. So basically a lot of luck, entitlement, combined with a lot of work. Similar people dealt similar cards to me were able to squander their opportunity by various mistakes that usually were some form of laziness. Story 41. Took an entry-level job at a small manufacturing company for $8 an hour. Spent the next 23 years there learning everything I could about what the company does, became head of product engineering. The key for me was making myself and my job as irreplaceable as possible. Become an expert in things there that they'll never just be able to hire someone from outside to do cheaper without having to spend years training them. And they'll have no choice but to keep paying you more to keep you around. If they can hire pretty much anyone off the street to your job after a week of training, then you have basically zero leverage to negotiate a raise. Story 42. I was a desktop support IT guy for 15 years after dropping out of college. I went back to finish up a psychology degree and nursing school prereqs. I was working full-time and going to school at night and on weekends for 3 years, and then an accelerated RN program over 18 months. I picked nursing because I love helping people in science, plus my state pays really well, and we have a great union. It's never too late to change your career path. Story 43. I risk my license as an RN every day trying to keep my level 1 trauma center's waiting room empty, making sure that every patient that isn't in a room with an assigned nurse, usually about 10, 12 at a time, gets taken care of by me. No chair or bed left cold for 12 hours with no break, sometimes no help, and what's worse, I choose to work 4, 5 days a week instead of the typical 3 just so I can barely get over the 6-figure mark. I swear I love what I do, though. Story 44. I'm in telecommunications/IT/cybersecurity. Making 6 figures isn't all it's cracked up to be. Let's say you make $150K gross. Your net ends up being about 70-80K take home. Once the IRS comes calling along with health insurance, etc., the 6-figure income really becomes a 5-figure income of real money. If you have kids, mortgage, etc., living beneath your means, It still seems like, especially today, one needs a seven-figure salary to survive. I honestly don't know how people who make five figures live in today's world. I truly sympathize and know I am blessed to be able to complain about making six figures. Story 45. I got a degree in English and was going to get a certificate to teach high school. Dropped out when I realized I didn't want to do that. It took literally 1 week shadowing a high school English teacher for a class. Joined the Army. They gave me the option of either enlisted as an E4 or officer candidate school. I took the enlisted route because I didn't think I wanted to make a career out of it, but they were offering a hefty bonus and student loan forgiveness. I scored high enough on the ASVAB that I qualified for any MOS they had slots for and took one doing satellite communication. I spent the next 5 years in windowless rooms working on data transmission and encryption equipment and realized I sort of liked technology. I chose to get out after my contract was up and got a job working for a civilian SATCOM company in Atlanta. It was lots of knock-type stuff and mostly live TV broadcast signals, but worked my way into a network planner position in 3 years. I had used up the GI Bill benefit getting my English degree forgiven, but I still qualified for the post-9/11 bill benefits. While working a full-time job, I used the post-9/11 benefits to get another bachelor's degree in computer science from Mercer in Atlanta. Most companies equate military experience for job experience, so I was able to get a job as a mid-career IT manager directly out of college working for an aerospace manufacturer. I've worked for that company for 10 years now and am at director level. I make $160,000 salary, 15% annual bonus, and the company matches 8% into a 401k. Story 46. Become the best in my industry. Not only know my job, but learn and do everyone's job in my industry as much as I can. I can operate a forklift, do laser marking, quality engineering work at all levels, run and program CMMs. I can run a CNC machine, plan and do efficient shipment routes. I can do multi-million-dollar contract negotiations, bank negotiations, project and program management, you name it. I have done all of these, and I'm good at them. Story 47. Software engineer. My base pay is less than $100K, but I've already surpassed that number due to working overtime. I'm exempt, so anything over 40 HRs is just straight time, but it's still better than straight salary. I was in EMS/fire service for 12 years prior to this job. Even at my busiest department, picking up extra shifts and working special details like sporting events, marathons, etc., and teaching at the local community college, I never made more than $70K. My job now is cake in comparison, and the only thing that sucks is having to travel between 50 to 75%. Story 48. My tips. Do exactly what you say you will do. If you will miss the deadline, tell your colleagues well in advance and not the day of delivery or after. Ask how people are doing and give A. People will remember how you made them feel, not what you actually said. Ask for more responsibility after at least 60 to 1 year of doing the above. Be proactive and take extra initiative on at least 30% of tasks requested of you. Also value yourself and don't be a slave to a corporation either. Go deep in your skill set so you develop a skill edge or being known for doing something others can't quite do as well. Whilst doing that, keep self-educating yourself on new tools. You'd be amazed what jobs open up and promotions if all of a sudden you're the only one who can use Sprout Social or Google Analytics or the fancy new machine tool device. Treat the assistants to the boss as well as you do the boss. Guess who the boss asks for regular opinions on employees needing a promotion? Story 49. Software engineering manager. $130K plus 15% bonus if the company does well. I started back in 2014 as new grad making $40K. I didn't do anything special, just did my time at a few dev houses pumping out code websites, working on my skills, and moving up the corpo ladder. I didn't intentionally job hop as many in tech often do. I just got laid off after 3 and then 4 years respectively at the last 2 companies I worked at and got pay bumps with each new job. Story 50. Comp sci major, bachelor's degree. I didn't bother with an internship or anything, so when I finished up, I didn't have any job lined up and moved, stupidly, to an area with barely any IT presence. I struggled for several years doing odd contracting jobs, driving buses, on-site tech support, barely pulling above minimum wage. Eventually clawed my way into a full-time retail hardware support job where overtime was ours for the taking, clearing maybe $50K after overtime bonuses. Then, with some luck, I stumbled into a recruiter for a company looking to hire someone to train up in the up-and-coming business software, business process management, low-code sector, which I'd honestly never heard of before. Started out barely, on paper, more than I'd made in my prior job, but after 4 or 5 years, that had doubled at least. and I passed the six-figure mark. After 8 years, I jumped ship after an offer from a different company I couldn't refuse, and have been with them for a few years now, and it's nearly doubled again, in total. Story 51, I'm a senior DevOps engineer. The software industry to a cultural concept and built a job description for it. I'm supposed to change corporate culture to be more startup-like. Instead, I'm writing build, deploy pipelines without any permissions because the cloud team can't figure out what the infrastructure team does. And no one understands developer requirements because they're focused on not giving anyone access. They understand that they have a job because of developers, and all the company value is derived from the software they write. Story 52. I work as a physician assistant. It's great, way less school than a doctor, more flexibility, not stuck in a specialty. Pretty great pay and benefits as there is a real demand. I get to help patients and ultimately the responsibility, read liability, is on the doctor. Would recommend to anyone interested in medicine, but not sure about MD versus RN versus PT. You don't get to make the final call if there is a difference of opinions, and the word assistant is literally in your job title, so you need to know you ego can handle it, but the work-life balance and pay really are pretty great. Story 53. I worked in childcare for 20 years, earning very little, sometimes as little as $10K per annum. Then after COVID, a local childcare service closed down and I reopened it. Overnight, pretty much quadrupled my wages. I expanded the business, took on more rooms, more children, and more staff. Now 3 years later, I'm making six figures. I can't believe it and pinch myself every morning. I feel so lucky, but I worked hard to get here. And I feel so lucky that I got to experience such tie jobs and bosses, and now I know exactly how not to treat staff. There's no better feeling than being a fair and good boss. Story 54, power plant technician, union position. I'm a biologist and slowly worked towards the environmental compliance field to ensure I could own a home and retire someday. I cover all environmental compliance for our facility, anything that deals with soil, water, waste, air, etc. I do field work, manage data, write reports, deal with regulatory agencies, manage contractors, and constantly problem solve. I love it, and only felt this challenged in grad school. We used to have a department of 10, now it's 2. I'm definitely underpaid for what I do, but at the same time I have the highest salary for my job description in my region as well. Story 55, scientist. 3 degrees in theoretical physics, MPhys, nanotechnology, MPhil, and experimental biophysics, PhD. Right now, I help design, test, and build equipment for a scientific instrument company. It's not really work. I just piss about with lasers and mathematics all day long. I mean, that's what I do for fun anyway if I wasn't getting paid to do it. Story 56. Bear in mind location also matters a lot, and 6 figures isn't quite what it used to be. In the Northeast, California, and other very high cost of living areas, a lot of people will make 6 figures and not be particularly well off, solidly middle class. I worked at a bank in NYC and within 6 years hit the 6-figure mark. Uber drivers can and do make 6 figures, obviously lacking benefits. Story 57. Joined the Marine Corps, decided I didn't want to be an infantry Marine all my life. Went to college for aviation, decided I didn't want to fly, graduated with Bachelor's of Science in Aviation, MGMT. Decided I didn't want to work at an airport. Got an entry-level job working for a network operations center for power company. Learned networking and went work at an ISP. Now making 6 figures as a distribution automation network engineer at the same original power company. Story 58. I'm an early education consultant, subject matter expert for the entire state. I work across every campus. Made sure to network with union bigwigs, befriend the well-known consultants in the sector, and always approach the Department of Education people after conferences. Just made sure everyone knew who I was. I got amazing opportunities very early on in my career because of this. Worked really hard to not let assholes get in my way. Use every skill I learned from every job, no matter how irrelevant it felt. Learned what the masses in my sector wanted and worked at becoming an advocate for them through the way I worked. Be relatable by knowing but not appearing to have memorized it. Confidence, even when I lack it. Never, ever settling, and certainly never letting the higher-ups get away with illegal that had anything to do with human rights. And the most important thing, I love my job and am completely committed. That shows. Story 59. Got an entry-level job in a high-growth industry. Cut my teeth for 5 years, being severely underpaid for the final 2 years for the work I was producing at that company, as I was always passed up for significant promotions. Decided to leave, went for a few interviews. Got one offered just above $100K after tax. By stroke of pure luck and being at the right place and right time, one of the failed interviews came back and offered significantly more, so I jumped ship again, LOL. Story 60. I'm a data scientist. I started as a lab tech and worked my way up to six figures over the course of 12 years. The biggest thing that helped me get there was I learned how to code in 2006, and I found out ways to use simple coding to manipulate spreadsheets way faster than my coworkers. It's kind of like that saying, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. I also had a mentor that told me a lot of people here think they are here to do science, but they're actually here to sell product. So whatever I do, I think about what the business needs and how we can get more sales. Story 61. Earned a degree going to school nights and weekends while working full-time in a contact center. Worked a lot of hours, earned a reputation for being reliable, fair, and honest. At 36, was recruited by a large telecom company and worked my way up to global sales director. Tech sales jobs can be very lucrative. Story 62. Not anymore, but I spent some time selling consulting services to distressed businesses, mostly commission-based. Ended up that era making like $120K or so, and though it sounds sketchy as hell, I'm pretty confident we were actually helping people, both the business owners and the banks, to collect their SBA payout. Genuinely felt like a win/win/win, which I thought was impossible. Story 63. Software developer in the financial industry, bachelor's degree in computer science. A friend had been hired by a consultant agency, and he reached out to see if I was still looking for a job since we had graduated together. I was. He referred me. I got in, and my first contract was with a financial company. My manager from the financial company wanted me to become an employee, so they negotiated buying my contract from my consulting employer. Been employed by the financial company ever since, 5 years a contractor, 2.5 years as an employee. Story 64. Advanced degree in economics. Learned some programming at my first job, got better at it over the years. Heavily involved in risk assessment, automation, control and efficiency gains, etc. 3 years after graduation broke the 100K barrier. It's really just having in-demand skills and being truly well-rounded, not the academia version of well-rounded, but well-rounded within your industry, team, etc. Instead of having our team reach out to people to help with a current or new process, other teams reach out to me and see if I can improve or help build something that makes everyone's life easier. Everyone can do math. Not everyone has a technical background. Story 65. Stuck it out with a mom and pop business that grew over time. My curiosity and self-teaching nature allowed me to help grow the business while simultaneously making my role there basically irreplaceable. I started out as a cashier, and now I'm the CTO. I have complaints like some typical problems with small business and working for a maniac and not being offered health insurance. I have it through my spouse's job and having a lot of frustrations with the owner, who is a piece of work. But for the most part, I work with zero rules, zero oversight, and zero schedule expectations. I have an excellent work ethic and like to succeed in my work, but I've been given plenty of rope to hang myself with if I choose to slack and not take my job seriously. It's a pretty wild gig. I work about 7 hours per day, MF. Sometimes more, sometimes significantly more, and sometimes less. Salary. Currently, I do the following. Payroll for about 40 employees, some HR stuff, graphic design, audio production, lighting design, 3D design, CGI, CAD work, motion graphics, CNC production, robot programming, like the big ones you see manufacturing cars, and I handle all IT and e-commerce infrastructure needs. There's dozens more smaller efforts that I either lead or am involved with, but these are the main ones, and all of the technical skills I now have were self-taught and learned while working. So I think in my case, luck, along with sticking it out with a company long-term, I'm talking like 25 plus years, and being a self-starter and self-learner are what lead me to this point. Edit. Wanted to add I could probably be making significantly more somewhere else with a more corporate type employer, and I struggle with that idea a lot, but the freedom I have in this job keeps me here. Depending on how you look at things, it may not be in my best interest to stay, but moving to a more traditional job would be a difficult change. I tried it once, it lasted literally 1 day, and I came crawling back and got a raise for doing so. Story 66. I make $150K plus 12% to my 401K without any contribution of my own. Got my associates in nursing, worked on my bachelor's in nursing while I worked bedside, spent maybe 5 years in my specialty, and then went for my master's. I work 36 hours a week, 3 days. I love my job. I work in a very specialized area. It's my first year in this role, and I expect pretty hefty salary increases along the way. Story 67. STEM degree, some luck, focus on emotional intelligence in the workplace. 1. It matters a lot more how you do something than how much you can get done too. People will forget what you do, but will never forget how you make them feel. Be reliable. I'm currently a director with promotion to senior director likely on the horizon. When you choose a college major, Choose something useful and in need. STEM is a strong option. If you decide to major in gender studies or ancient history, you have taken a lot of options off of your life board. Follow your heart, but not blindly. Story 68, IT Systems Engineering. Had a couple of lucky breaks that let me break out of the support orbit and work on product teams. For those going into tech, there's a worsening divide between tech support style and DevOps coder style jobs and fewer opportunities to jump between the two. So don't go into it unless you're willing to put the work in, because support jobs are getting lower and lower pay every year. Of course, 6 figures doesn't mean much when you're living near NYC. At least it's not as bad as California. I can't imagine houses starting at $2 million for a burnout shack and having to beat 40 bidders for that. Edit. Oh yeah, if you're going to cybersecurity boot camp to get into the exciting world of cyber, save your money. There's a huge demand for security-minded folks, but not fresh green ones with no experience. Story 69. The statistics claim 4% of the UK earn 100K plus. If you add people sacrificing to stay below, people who don't declare and self-employed, who earn less on paper but realistically are on a 6-figure salary, I'd bet this is more like 10%. My point being that's around 3 million of the population, so not a huge number of people. Nominally, those earning that amount are either very qualified, very experienced, working in a high-risk or stress environment, or a combination of multiple, all of which has taken aptitude, effort, and luck. All 3 of which, amongst others, you need. Working really hard and being very qualified alone is rarely enough to get into a 6-figure role. Your location, a job being open, and simply knowing that role is available are all key and are arguably attributed to luck in part. Simply thinking that luck alone is enough to get a 6-figure salary is short-sighted IMO. Luck may have presented the opportunity, but your ability and hard work made it a reality. I have an engineering degree and spent several years as an engineer, earning compared to Europe what I feel is a criminal salary. Engineers in the UK are grossly underpaid, underappreciated, and not respected, which all contribute to the lack of technical investment and capabilities of this country. I made the move into technical sales and immediately doubled my salary, although still below 100K. I was then approached on LinkedIn and moved into another tech sales role a few years later and have since been earning 6 figures. They found me because I made an effort to have an updated profile. They asked me to interview because on paper I had the experience and qualifications, and I got the job because I prepared and delivered. Yes, there's luck, but there's also years of hard work, a non-academic skill set that I constantly work on, and an attitude of why not, let's jump. I never set out targeting a salary when I started my career journey and always followed what ignited me and what I liked. I'm extremely fortunate to be in the position I now am, but I never went chasing it. It is at times all-consuming, demanding, and stressful. Don't be mistaken, the majority of people earning 6 figures are rarely working Monday to Friday 9-5. Story 70, Data and AI Consulting. AI needs data, and I do that bit particularly well. There's elements of skill, obviously. I'm good at spotting the useful bits and good opportunities, but a lot of luck. I did this to get more money than I earned as a paramedic, and I miss that so much that I still do it a bit on the side, and am retraining to move into therapy and psychology despite the pay cut. Story 71. I had only been working for 3 years, 33F, was born with generational wealth, so I took my time figuring things out, what I wanted to do. Fell in love with AI and philosophy during my undergrad at 24 years old. Was a biomed student then, graduated at 26, 27, and pursued masters in machine right away. I'm from Thailand and flew over to the UK for my master's. Went to an international school and studied abroad in Australia since 9 years old, so my English is native level. Had to do some conversion since I've never done computer science, so it took me 3 years, 2 master's degree and 1 year of taking computer science course. I graduated with a degree in ML from a Russell Group University in London. Luckily, my parents paid for all my rent, and I have access to my trust so I could spend 100% of my time studying and never worry about working to earn more allowance. Has no trouble landing jobs at all. Machine learning jobs is very well paid if you're good. I started with £35K and jumped to £60K after 7 months. Left MBLADY first job because I hated it. And through references, I landed more contractor and part-time. It's the US company that basically pays double my UK salary. My Chinese friend also told me to join his company as an AI consultant. Suddenly, starting 4 months ago, I'm making 6 figures. It's probably from my upbringing where I am very comfortable with high-level executives and finance people, so I feel absolutely no pressure to talk and explain technical things to them. I know their nature, and I'm very confident that I'm very good at my job because I'm doing it purely out of passion. Funny, as a small Southeast Asian girl, I've never been discriminated. So many people warned me of this male-dominated field, whether in the US and UK company. In fact, I feel very loved. By the way, I could definitely start my own company in Thailand from connection alone, and a lot of my entrepreneurs friends are waiting to fund me. I'm still waiting for the right time. It's wild. I'm earning more than my Thai CEO friends, and they are super jealous, LOL. 1.